In this video, I'm taking a look at the Lomography Petzval 55mm f1.7 Bokeh Control MarkII. Inspired by 19th century design with a cult following, lomography has brought the spirit of Joseph Petzval's optic into the mirrorless era. Over the years, lomography has released several lenses based on Joseph Petzval's original 1840s optical designs. The Lomography Petzval 55mm f1.7 Bokeh Control MarkII is the company's first art lens built specifically for full-frame mirrorless cameras. It's a reimagining of the original design, aiming to replicate the aesthetic qualities of those early lenses. A sharp center and wild, swirling bokeh that makes any merry-go-round effect fade in comparison. I've reviewed other lenses that produces a somewhat similar effect, such as the Helios 40, Helios 44, and TT Artisan's remake of the Carl Zeiss Biochar 75mm f1.5. But in terms of effect, those are more like corrected versions of this lens, taming the aberrations that create its distinctive bokeh. While I usually follow a standard testing procedure, you'll see that there is little point in doing so with this lens. After all, it's not sharpness charts or corner performance that matters here. This is a lens about feel, character, and swirly chaos. So this will be part review, part test. Let's dive in. You can find this review as a written blog post on our blog site, where you'll find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. Most of the sample images in high resolution are available on a separate site. I leave links to the blog post and the sample images in the description below. Huge thanks to Lomography for letting me try out this lens for a couple of weeks. As always, this review is 100% independent though. Here are the specifications of this lens. You can pause the video to take a closer look or check out our blog post for a more detailed overview. Handling and build quality. This Petzval lens is fully manual. No autofocus, no aperture control, no image stabilization, no electronic contacts, and no EXIF data. It appears to be made entirely of metal and glass. All markings, including the stylish lens name, are printed on the barrel or front color. There are 3 rings on the lens. Starting from the rear, closest to the camera, is a grip-friendly focusing ring. It turns with a bit of stiffness but feels well damped. The ring has a total physical rotation of 130 degrees, but the actual focus throw is only 90 degrees. This discrepancy is due to the presence of 2 sets of markings, one for minimum focus distance 0.6 meter at BC1 and 0.6 meter at BC7, and one for infinity, infinity at BC1 and infinity at BC7. BC stands for bokeh control, and at each BC level, from BC1 to BC7, the focus throw from minimum focus to infinity remains 90 degrees. There are no other distance markings on the focus ring. Next is a very thin, clickless aperture ring that turns smoothly and quietly. Unlike typical aperture rings, it has only a single marking. The aperture values themselves are fixed on the lens barrel. To set the aperture, you align the ring's marking with the desired value on the barrel. The aperture markings are not evenly spaced. The gaps are wider at larger, brighter apertures and narrower at smaller ones. Notably, there is no marking for f16 between f11 and f22. The aperture ring sits very close to the third ring, and because it turns so easily, it's easy to nudge it by mistake. I did so several times without realizing it. The third ring, closest to the front element, is the bokeh control ring, which allows you to adjust the level of swirl. It's marked with evenly spaced values from 1, least swirl, to 7, most swirl. The BC1 and BC7 markings on the focusing ring corresponds to the settings on this ring. Changing the bokeh level will shift the focus setting, so if you adjust it after focusing, you'll need to refocus. To further control the bokeh, the lens has another trick in its sleeve: the Waterhouse aperture system for creating experimental effects. This system uses a slot on the lens barrel located between the focusing and aperture ring. Included in the box, alongside a metal front cap bearing the stylish Petzval logo, are 5 metal aperture plates. These can be inserted into the Waterhouse slot to alter the shape of the specular highlights in the background blur. The round plate, the first one on the left, doesn't actually change the image. It produces the same round bokeh as using no plate at all. Its main purpose is to act as a dust cover, protecting the lens when none of the creative aperture plates are in use. Optical features. Let's start with sharpness. To assess it, we examine 3 areas: sharpness near the infinity mark, the portrait distance, and in close-up shots. For the infinity sharpness test, we look at 3 areas of the image: center, midframe, and corner. I focus the lens on the center, and the sharpness there is pretty good from wide open. Upping down improves it, but not by much. The field curvature is pretty wild, and that's exactly what gives the lens its dreamy, exaggerated bokeh. I could have squeezed out more sharpness in the midframe and corners by refocusing there, but that wasn't the point of this test. What becomes obvious is that this lens just isn't built for landscapes. Where it shines is in creating a vintage mood, letting you nail focus on a single spot while everything else melts away. Though the corners never really sharpen up, no matter what you do. Sharpness at portrait distance. Let's look at the points of interest for portraits at portrait distance: the center, the inner circle, and the outer circle. Here we take a different approach. In portraits, especially with a lens like this, the goal isn't to make the whole frame sharp, but to place focus where it matters most on the subject. For this test, I refocused the lens for each shot, adjusting for both aperture and measurement point, center, inner, and outer. Wide open, the center is quite sharp, the inner circle is also good, and the outer circle is usable, though it lacks contrast and appears hazy. Stopping down just a third of stop to f2 doesn't help much, but at f2.8 there is a strong improvement across the frame. The center and inner circle show very good sharpness, and the outer circle reaches a good level. Generally, it's more or less comparable to other solid normal lenses. Stopping down farther continues to improve sharpness. By f5.6, sharpness is excellent in all measured areas. Close-up sharpness. At close-up distance, it's the same story. Sharp but hazy and low contrast wide open, due to spherical aberrations, with a noticeable improvement at f2.8 and very good performance from f4. Sharpness and contrast don't reach the excellent levels of top-tier modern lenses, but that's not the goal here. For its intended purpose, it performs very well. Lens distortion. Nobody buys this lens for architectural photography. Nevertheless, it has negligible distortion, which is appreciated in portrait works. Vignetting. Vignetting control is average, but again, it suits the lens's purpose well. Focus shift and aberrations. This lomography lens exhibits spherical aberrations and focus shift, which is expected from such an old design. Testing lateral chromatic aberration makes no sense for this lens's use cases. Flare resistance. Honestly, I didn't expect much from this lens when it comes to flare resistance, but it actually did better than I thought. It's definitely not perfect. You'll still get some ghosting and wailing flare, but for what this lens is meant for, it's totally fine. And to be honest, I kind of like it, because the flare adds to that dreamy vibe this lens gives. Bokeh. Let's start with the bokeh highlights. There are no onion rings or double edges, but you do get a really strong cat's eye effect toward the edges and corners of the frame. With the included Waterhouse filters, you can even change the shape of the highlights. Those can add some fun variations to the look in the right situations, though I didn't really have a chance to show them off properly beyond a few test shots here. The extreme field curvature is the reason for the exaggerated swirly bokeh effect visible in BC7. And now let's have a closer look at the background blur at different distances. At close focus, as with almost all other lenses, you will get a very soft background, but with a subtle swirl in the corners. At tight portrait distances, you can get a mild swirly bokeh or even a soft painterly kind of bokeh. In head and shoulders distance, you can get a super swirly look, a gentler swirl, or even a soft, painterly kind of bokeh. The swirl is always there, sometimes subtle, sometimes really strong, but it's always swirly in some way. Again, you'll see different levels of swirl, or it can shift into a softer, painterly background depending on the scene. Overall, the bokeh from this lens is really nice, but definitely a bit special. I personally love it, but I can see how it could be a love it or hate it kind of look. Conclusion and sample images. First, things that I like. The bokeh, sharpness in the focused point in the center and mid-frame, distortion control. Average, flare resistance. And things that I don't like, the corner sharpness and the vignetting. It's hard to judge this lens the same way you would judge a normal one. This is an effect lens, and looking at a standard pros and cons list doesn't really tell the whole story. That's why I didn't fill the table with my all regular ratings in all points. If you tried to rate it as a regular everyday lens, it would score terribly. Corner sharpness, vignetting, field curvature, and coma are all basically a disaster compared to modern glass. But that's not what this lens is about. As a vintage style tool, it's actually really fun and strong at what it does. It can give you that crazy super swirly bokeh, or go to the other way and produce softer, painterly backgrounds. And while it falls apart if you push it outside its sweet spot, it's actually really sharp where it counts for the kind of photos this lens is meant for. If you're into art photography and love that kind of look, this lens is right up your alley. As an everyday workaround lens, definitely not. One more thing, price-wise, it's not the cheapest, but it's also not ridiculously expensive either. As mentioned earlier, this review is also available in written format on our blog, where you will find detailed test charts on sharpness and other characteristics. I've also listed a few alternatives at the end of the article for those interested. Most of the sample images are available in high resolution on a separate site, and you'll find links to both the blog post and sample images in the description below. If you are thinking about buying this lens, you can support our work by using the links in the description. It won't cost you anything extra or affect the price, but it helps us a little. You can also donate to support the channel. A huge thanks for watching. Your comments are always welcome. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Until the next video, have a fantastic time, everyone.